Have you ever just seen a creature so terrifying, so horrible, so godforsaken that you knew it just had to be vanquished off the earth? Well, if not, let me introduce you to Ollie London. Now, for the people that don't know, this right here is Ollie London. And let's just say that is not a pretty sight. Now, there's a reason he looks like that. It's not like he was born like that. Trust me, there is no God cruel enough to make someone born like that. No, he actually had a cosmetic surgery to make his face look like famous K-pop artist Jimin of BTS or the Bangtan Boys, or whatever way you want to call them, most famously known as BTS, but also called the Bangtan Boys, whatever. He had that cosmetic surgery to look like Jimin. And if you couldn't tell, it was not a success. See, let me just put them side by side. This is Ollie, and this is Jimin. Ollie, Jimin. Ollie, Jimin. I don't know if I really need to tell you this, but there is almost zero resemblance. It is embarrassing that he completely altered his face to look like something out of an H.P. Lovecraft book rather than a, good-looking K-pop idol. And I think the worst part is that he took it a step further and now acts like he's Korean. For example, he acts like he's bilingual, as shown right here.
For bilingual people out there, you know when you're switching between two different languages and your voice just keeps changing?
But I totally get that all the time. Like when I'm speaking English, I'm like...
And the worst part is, he just... Look, I'm not fluent in Korean, right? But I have heard the Korean language. I have, heard it both in real life from friends, and I've heard it over video, whatever. So I've had, both experiences. And neither one even remotely sounds like Ollie London's Korean.
안녕하세요. 한국 송선혜입니다. 오늘은 데이트 갈라 치게요. I'm crazy about you. 반하세요.
And Ollie London's Korean is like the equivalent of what I heard in 5th grade Spanish class, but pretend it's Korean instead of Spanish. It is beyond embarrassing. It is borderline offensive. But on that topic of offensive, the real problem here isn't the fact that he's making a mockery of himself. It isn't the fact that he looks awful. It isn't the fact that he is just a complete subhuman. It is the fact that he is just modeling a trend and a pattern that we have seen time and time again in just history in the past, few hundred years. What I'm talking about is white people imitating and appropriating other races and making their features, their cultures, socially savvy, while those very people face discrimination for it. For example, we can trace this back to literally a century ago with blackface entertainers making their imitation of black people into something of comedy, into something where they could capitalize off of it and, entertain others, while the people that they were imitating, black people, were, obviously subjugated to a lot of racism and oppression. But that didn't end after, the Civil Rights Act in the 1960s, or the Voting Rights Act in the 1960s. That, it didn't even come close to ending, because first of all, we're seeing it right now with Ollie London, but we see time and time again, people appropriate other cultures. They appropriate, black culture, and black people are still oppressed. They appropriate Asian culture, and, Asians still face hate crimes. They appropriate Native American culture, yet Native Americans still face systemic oppression. Latinos, same concept. We are seeing this continued imitation of a race that faces just constant oppression from the system. And it goes beyond cultural appreciation, really, because first of all, these people do nothing often to actively fight against these issues. And second of all, it is just downright disrespectful. We see in the case of Ollie London how this guy is making a mockery of not only himself, but the Korean language and this specific Korean person by Asian baiting. And this happens all the time. And it is, as a person of color myself, it is extremely upsetting because, you know, I'm Indian and I've seen this happen to Indo-Pakistani culture, and it's infuriating to see it happen to other cultures as well. It's just, I sometimes, like right now, I'm just at a loss for words. So yeah, that's kind of all I really had to say. This guy is a complete embarrassment to his family, to himself, to everything he's ever done prior. This is a reason why I believe that we need to be more conscious about the line between appreciation of a culture and an ethnicity and a race, and appropriation and disrespect, because we have these absolute blubbering dumbasses just making fools of themselves and making mockeries of the culture that they claim to be paying homage to. It's gross. Anyway, peace.